Everybody, this is Perch. Jim Lee. Jim Lee, head of DC, and I beat up on Jim Lee. I don't mean to beat up on Jim Lee. I think Jim Lee is a fantastic artist. He seems like a very nice guy, very personable guy. My argument for Jim Lee is he's in the wrong job. I think that, I think a leader position is different. I also think that if you are in a leadership position, it requires certain meanness and toughness. And I also think the company is desperately in need of a strong leader. I think that Jim Lee, as a leader of DC, is the kind of the figurehead during happy, calm, good times where business is healthy and strong and life's going okay. I think that would be a good job for Jim Lee during that period of time. But we're not in that period of time, and we do need more aggressive leadership. And so I think it's bad casting for the moment we're in. But make no mistake about it, and nobody should ever pretend. I think as an artist, amazing. As a human being, seems delightful. As a leader in a company that's going through massive upheavals and changes and is in a crisis, not the right person at this particular moment. But here's somebody who wrote in, a watcher of the show. It says, "Hey, Perch. Hey there. I'm personally glad that I found your vlogs. Vlogs. God, sound like a boomer dope there. Okay, vlog. As I greatly appreciate hearing from someone who is not out there either to make money, set a blind agenda, or constantly attack someone." Yeah, take that, Mumbles. Dick. Sorry. Okay. My question is this. Jim Lee, it seems, has Teflon armor during his time as co-publisher, sole publisher, and now chief creative officer at DC Comics. He and Dan Didio nearly sank DC Comics with the New 52. Well, I mean, sort of. I mean, don't forget, the New 52 beat the shit out of Marvel for like more than a year. It sold very, very well. The New 52 was a success at the beginning, and then it trailed off, and then the DCU New 52, DCYOU New 52, that was a complete catastrophic dump of a failure. But anyway, you can't people have interesting memories, but the New 52 sold a crap load of comics at the beginning. Anyway, things got a little better when back to the mill. Things got a little better with Jeff Johns Save Their Bacon with Rebirth. Rebirth, at least to me, was shuffling cards. No management changes were made. No fixes to depower the editors were made. And then, after having a few years of doing well with Rebirth, more like 6 months, Jim Lee goes solo at DC Comics with a failed Future State and Infinite Frontier. Why hasn't WB replaced Jim Lee at DC Comics with someone else who could drain the swamp at DC Comics? Thanks for reading. Keep up the good work. Well, I mean, look, Jim Lee is viewed as a figurehead. He's viewed as, for all intents and purposes, the Stan Lee. He's a cheerful, friendly guy. He's somebody who can draw really well, so they can bring him out, and he can draw iconic characters, kind of in his style. It's almost a templated drawing approach. Again, he's got a beautiful template. So yeah, no knocking it. But that's Jim Lee. That's what they view him as. That's what they need. That's what they need from him. For all intents and purposes, the way WB looks at it, they don't need somebody in there, or rather, they're not looking at Jim Lee to fix anything. They're not looking at Jim Lee to lead the charge. They're looking at Jim Lee as somebody who can be, brought out during conventions and said, "Hey, you're the creative mastermind at DC." I mean, he's not writing any books at DC. He's not sitting in editors' meetings. He's not reviewing pitches. He's not doing any of that stuff. He's completely disconnected, but it's a good story. It becomes it becomes kind of a feel-good, like, hey, we've got this legendary artist, and look, he can draw like nobody's business. It's amazing. He is the creative leader of our company. But the title doesn't really mean anything. The reality is he is Stan Lee at DC at this point. The only problem with that is that as a Stan Lee, he probably needs to get out in front of the spotlight more, and basically take more pictures, give more interviews, be more personable. I think Jim Lee at the end of the day doesn't particularly like being out. Stan Lee loved being in front of the camera, loved doing these interviews, anytime you could get him on TV, he was there. Jim Lee, it strikes me, just you have to kind of yank him over to it. He doesn't really. He's like, God damn it, I got to get another interview. Okay, Jim Lee just strikes me as that personality type, and that's how he comes across. Whether he feels that in his heart or not, that's how he exudes himself. So I think from WB's perspective, they got a figurehead. He's somebody who can draw well. When he goes out in front of conventions, he smiles. He's got this history to comics. He's serving the purpose of which they had hired him for. Unfortunately, they either did not hire an actual leader, or they backfilled him with people like Marie Javins, with Daniel Cherry III. They brought those people in, and those people suck. They just basically went MIA on the company and just never really do much. Very, very limited involvement, zero public persona, and they're just not around. I mean, Dan Cherry's definitely not around because he's left the company, but that's the problem there. It's not to, by the way, say to let Jim Lee off the hook. Again, whether it's an easy job or a hard job, if you have the C-level leadership management title, you got the job. Whether you were picked as a figurehead or not, you still have the job. So at some point, if the house is burning down around you, you need to, pick up a bucket of water and start putting out that fire. Not go, well, they hired me for my looks. You got to, get some water, or there will be no house for you to stand in soon. Even if it's, it's quote unquote not the job you thought you took, still it's your job. That's the shitty thing about leadership. This is what a lot of people miss about leadership, is that, fair or unfair, you got to do the job. I say this to other leaders sometimes. We'll talk about what's some of the challenging aspects of being a leader in a company. And one of the biggest ones is you don't always know what to do. And if you're lower in the company, your job is to say, I don't know what to do. I'm going to escalate this, get it into the hands of somebody who does. I'm going to, find somebody who can help solve this problem. Maybe it's somebody higher up, maybe it's a consultant, whatever it happens to be. But it's okay. It's okay for you to say, I don't know what to do. This is above my pay grade. I don't know what to do. But there is a point where you become a leader in the company. When you become a leader, you lose the ability to say, I don't know what to do. You look up to say, well, one of my superiors will figure it out. And then you realize, there's nobody above you. Or it's the CEO of the company or the board. And they look back down on you and go, yeah, you're a leader. You gotta figure it out. That's Jim Lee. And for that reason, I think he does. He definitely needs to be replaced, or perhaps more to the point, somebody at WB needs to go, you know what? We view you as the figurehead. We realize that we've given you a title that kind of infers more than a figurehead. And so we're really kind of screwing up. We're kind of making everybody confused here. So therefore, we're gonna, your job's gonna change. You're gonna be artistic visionary, whatever, and we're gonna actually hire a boss who's gonna do the boss things that bosses have to do. That's what we're gonna do. And to me, that's what DC needs badly. That's what they need. They need a boss. And Jim Lee's not that boss. And again, you can shout about that, but he's never going to be that boss. It's not in his DNA. It's not his style. So, it's time to cut bait, and they need to. I think there's no two ways around it. I just hope they do it soon. There are a lot of people at DC who are thoroughly confused and pissed at Jim Lee. I mean, the problem is, if we keep pushing this and pushing it and pushing it, the end result is going to be people are going to, basically Jim Lee's legacy is going to get tarnished. The person who should want this more than anyone is Jim Lee, because, he is a big draw. He is seen as being a friendly guy who's getting stuff done. He's not seen as a leader. And if it continues, then pretty soon the good guy aspect of his personality is going to get eroded away, because people are going to be frustrated that he's not, doing anything to fix this sinking ship. So he should be, more than anyone, clamoring for hey, bring in McKinsey or Deloitte or Accenture or whatever. Bring in somebody, but somebody's going to have to help do management consulting here. Somebody's going to need to fix this thing, because it's off the rails. I think that's the this is his moment to do that. He needs to do that. That and more than anything, I mean, it's sad the bar's that low, but I'm not looking at him to suddenly transform into a good leader who can steer us through the business choppy waters of all this stuff. I don't think that's fair. It's not in his DNA. It's not who he is. And I think he'd be one of the first to tell you that's not who he is. So the only responsibility I have for him right now, the only kind of thing I would ask is be responsible enough to hold up your hand and say, hey, we need help. I'm not the guy for this moment. Therefore, we either need to hire somebody who is, and I will step aside or change my role, or we can bring in a high-paid consultant, so a consultancy, a firm, like an Accenture or Deloitte or somebody like that, and they're going to help figure out kind of what the structure should look like, how it should operate. But one of us, somewhere, somehow, it's got to be done. And as the current leader, I am not willing to basically set this whole place on fire and watch it burn. It is important to me for the legacy of DC to make sure that we are in strong, capable, good financial hands, producing the very best work we can. Creatively, I can certainly step in and do more there. I can start mentoring the artists. I can form a tighter relationship with the creative teams. I can do lots of things. But from a business perspective, we need help. I need help. And damn it, you're going to listen to me because I'm in charge. So we're putting some help in here. That's what we need from Jim Lee. And if we don't get it from Jim Lee, if it continues to fart around in all this, then the reality is it's going bad, and things are going to tip over, and we'll be done. And that'll be a shame. I mean, that'll be a huge shame if that's the result we get to. Anyway, that's my opinion on it. Thank you very much for the mail. I hope that answered your question. And for all of you who are listening, interested in your opinion, and thanks for listening.